hopefully, if everything's working, then you guys can hear that this is Algebra 2, review for test 1 through 40. This would be part 1 of that. Okay, so the first most missed question on our review was number 13. So if I can find that. Okay, Michaela climbed up a mountain at an average speed of 3 miles per hour. She climbed down at an average speed of 5 miles per hour. What is Michaela's average speed for the entire trip? Okay. And I'm interested to know, because I would probably naturally say 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 miles per hour. What was the answer? 3.8? I'm wondering if I have that worked up somewhere to give you a good answer for that. Round to the nearest tenth. Oh, I might have to come back to that one. Okay, let's look at number 5. 5, use the graph to find the vertex and x-intercepts of the quadratic function. I'm just going to go ahead and say that 13 is not likely to be on your test. Okay, so that's why I'm not as worried about it. Okay, use the graph to find the vertex and x-intercepts of the quadratic function. At this point, you can really just look at the graph, right? So the vertex of any parabola is going to be either the maximum or the minimum. Here, there's a minimum. Okay, so we're looking at that coordinate where it reaches its absolute bottom trough point. Okay, which we should be able to see here. We're going to count over. Okay, so what's the x value there? Okay, and what's the y value? -4. Okay, so the first part of it is the vertex is at -3, -4. Now we need the x-intercepts. What is an x-intercept? Where a graph passes the x-axis. Okay, so I see 2 places. I see one here and one here. Okay, they're not looking for coordinates there. They're just looking for what is the x value. So the x-intercepts are what and what? Well, what is the -5 and -1 are the x-intercepts. Okay, now we can use like the graph, or sorry, the function of it where it says x squared plus 6x plus 5 to get essentially that same value where we're getting x plus, okay? And you would get 5 and 1 for that, right? Because 5 times 1 is 5, and 5 plus 1 is 6. And then solve. So x plus 5 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. Okay, solve for the x's. I'm going to get x equals -5. X equals -1. So when we say solve the quadratic, in the graph, what you're solving for is the x-intercepts. Okay? And if we change that equation to solve and put it into vertex form, we would see the vertex coordinates show up there. Okay? But here we just need the graph. Do we understand that? Okay? So if they give us a graph, that's pretty easy to use. Okay, number 7. Add the rational expressions. Well, what are my rational expressions in generalist form? Fractions. Great, that's what I'm looking for. What am I doing with those 2 fractions? Adding them. What do I have to have in order to add fractions? Common denominator. Okay, so what is the common denominator between 4 and 6? Something, we actually have one smaller than that. Now 24 works, but if we can go with something smaller, we will. What do I have to multiply 4 by to get 12? 3. So 3 over 3 because I want to multiply by something equivalent to 1. Okay, what do I have to multiply 6 by? So 2 over 2, right? Now, that just handles the coefficients 4 and 6. Okay, now I have x cubed. What's the common denominator of x cubed and x? X cubed. X cubed. In fact, whenever it comes to variables and common denominators, if they're the same If they're the same variable, the common denominator is always the variable with the greatest exponent. Okay? So I don't have to multiply x cubed by anything to get x cubed, do I? But what do I have to multiply x by to get x cubed? X squared. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So what's 3 times 1? 3. Okay. What's 1 times 2x squared? 2x squared. And our object here is to get that common denominator, right? So I'm just going to put it all over my common denominator. What is my common denominator? 12x cubed. Okay, 12x cubed. Okay, add the rational exponents. Okay, what was the answer on this? This. Okay, so this is what we're looking for on 7. So get a common denominator, add your fractions. Okay, so now we see what a possible answer can look like. Questions on 7? No? Okay. All right, number 16. Okay, so the fact that number 16 looks almost identical to number 7 tells me something about what we know how to do, right? Because if we miss them both at the same level, that sounds like consistently like there's a group of us that don't know how to do those. Okay, but having seen number 7, right, I'm going to let you kind of tell me, what are those two things? They're fractions. What do I have to do in order to add fractions? Common denominator. Okay, what is the common, and I'm going to move it kind of over here in terms of writing. So I got 1 over 8d to the 5th plus 1 over 9d to the 8th. Okay, so I need a common denominator between 8 and 9. 72, you just want to multiply them by each other. Okay, you did 72 and got it wrong. It shouldn't be wrong, but you may not have simplified it. That's true. Okay, and I don't know if there's anything smaller or not. I'd have to think about it. 45? Not with 8. So let's just go ahead and do this. Let's make this 9 and 9, and then what over here? 8 and 8. So if I'm ever unsure of what the common denominator is, can I always multiply one side by the other side's denominator? Yes. Okay. Now, we have to deal with the d. What is the common denominator between d to the 5th and d to the 8th? Ahmet? D to the 8th. It's going to be the variable with the largest exponent. So I don't need to multiply d to the 8th. D to the 3rd over here. D to the 3rd. Okay? Okay. So 1 times 9d cubed? 8 all over. Okay. And what's the final answer? What's the answer in your answer key? That? Okay. So do we feel a little bit more comfortable with these now? Okay. Yes. Okay, so you just didn't read it. Okay. It wasn't as clear. Okay. And that sometimes happens just because with file transfers, I think because this format doesn't work on your computer, so I have to export it as a PDF. And so sometimes when you export it into a different format, the numbers don't come out as clear. So it might have just even been fuzzy.
We also, one of the questions, like, there was a graphing question, it's like graph A, B,
Sure.
Yeah, it was like all over the place too.
Okay. All right. Again, same type of question. What are those two things? Fractions. Now, this is a little bit different, actually. All right. This one, we actually want to factor that, okay, before we try to just subtract. Okay. Let's see. If you guys have that, I am going to, let me see. Let me open up a new. it will open up a new. All right. So if you guys got that question pulled up, read it out to me. What does the numerator say? Okay, 2x squared minus 48. Okay, and I know it's minus and x plus 4 down here. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I notice in that first fraction that it's not factored as far as it can be. All right, what can I take out of the terms in the numerator on the left-hand fraction? I can take a 2 out. Minus what? Minus 24. Okay, is 24 a perfect square? No, so it's not a difference is my point, right? We're aware enough of some differences at this point to know what I'm talking about. Okay, now what about the bottom? That's a sum difference, right? X what? X plus and x minus 4. Very good. All right, and over here, does that reduce it all? X plus 6, x plus 4. Okay? I can't cancel. You're right, we're not multiplying anything, so I can't cancel. But so here's where we're looking across the denominators, right? Because we're trying to subtract fractions. What do I have to have in order to subtract fractions? Still have to have that common denominator. But notice how my left-hand fraction has an x plus 4. So that simplifies what I need to multiply my right-hand side by. What do I multiply the right-hand side by? X minus 4. On just the bottom? On the top as well. Okay? All right. So we're going to leave the denominator factor because we already know what the common denominator is, correct? We know it's x plus 4, x minus 4. Okay? But if you'll notice on that right-hand side, what can I do with that numerator? Not cancel, FOIL. Okay? We want to find out what its FOILed form is. Okay? We can actually probably just even go ahead and move this back to 2x squared minus 48 for the time being because nothing canceled out of it. But we had to factor it in order to see if something did cancel. All right? What is x times x? Okay. What is x times negative 4? Okay. What is 6 times x? Positive 6x. And 6 times negative 4? Negative 24. Now here's where you have to be really careful because what does this subtraction mean right here? It just means I put a subtraction sign there and everything's good. I distribute it. Okay, so I'm subtracting x squared, but what am I doing with, well, and we haven't simplified this yet, have we? Okay, so what needs to be simplified there? Okay, so that just needs to be 2x. Can I go ahead and do that now? Okay, so that should be plus 2x minus 24, correct? Yeah. Okay, so if I'm distributing that negative, that's going to the x squared. Okay, what's happening to the 2? Turns it into a negative. Okay. And 24 turns into a positive. Okay, now we need to simplify this numerator. So 3x squared? No. 1x squared. Why 1x squared and not 3x squared? Because it's 2x squared minus 1x squared, leaving you with 1x squared. So I've got an x squared. How about if I'm starting off with an x squared, the next thing I want to look at is the x values. Subtract 2x because it's all alone. And now I have negative 48 plus 24. Okay, negative 24. Okay, now before I put that over the numerator, what I want to do with this is I want to factor that down, right? No. It's got to be minus plus, right? Okay, because the only way to get a minus 24 is to multiply a negative and a positive. Okay, so what two things multiply to be 24 but have a difference of 2? 6 and 4. Okay, which one of them is negative, the 6 or the 4? The 6, because my middle term is negative, so my negative has to be bigger. Okay, so I got 6 and 4. Now, I can put that over my numerator. My numerator, which is x minus 4, x plus 4.
Your x plus 4
Now my x plus 4's cancel, and my final answer is x minus 6 over x minus 4. Okay? It's a lot of steps to that. Okay, there's a lot of factoring, distributing, right? Foiling. There's a lot to prove in that. Okay? So this is an excellent question for me to put on a test because it shows me that you know how to do several different skills effectively in order to get that answer. Okay? Yes. What's that? On a question like this, about has to be multiple choice because it's really hard to have it. I mean, I could make you type it in so that you're typing in something like parentheses x minus 6, close parentheses, slash, x minus 4. I could make you type that in,
No thanks.
but it would likely be multiple choice. Okay? But that doesn't help the fact that are you going to have to show me this work? Yeah. Which means I'm going to, listen, you say, well, I can't fit all that in the box sheet. Have I ever required you to fit everything in that box sheet? No. No, you can use scratch paper. Just let me know where the work is, okay, because that's what I want to see. All right, let's come back to the test. Let's see, what was that? Was that 20? That was 16? That was 25, so we need to see 14.
Yeah, same.
Answer confused you. Okay. Write an inequality to represent the graph. Okay. So is it a linear? Is it linear? Okay. So it's going to be a y equals mx plus b, but not equal, right? So y something mx plus b. What's the y-intercept? Positive 4. Okay. And the slope. Slope is rise over run. So I am looking for another point of intersection. Seems like there's one here and here, right? Okay, so I'm going down 1, 2, 3 over 1. So it looks like I have a slope of negative 3x, right? Okay. Now I have to determine how the inequality works, right? And this is a solid line, correct? Okay, so it should have an equal bar on the bottom. Okay. Now, what I would note, you got a couple different ways of doing this. You can substitute in 0, 0 for your x and y, but you ought to know that is 0, 0 included in the solution? No. So I would be looking for the opposite of that, right? So is 0 greater than 4? No, 0 is not. In all honesty, that's the answer that I would want because 0 is not the solution. So how could I do something less confusing? All right, could I pick a coordinate in here? Could I pick like 3, 3? Yes. Okay, so I would go 3 and negative 3 times 3 plus 4. Well, what's negative 3 times 3? Negative 9. What's negative 9 plus 4? Negative 5. What is the relationship of 3 and negative 5? Which one's bigger? 3. 3 is greater than negative 5. You see? Now, what is the answer?
It has a question mark.
Oh, it has a question mark?
Yeah, right where that is.
Okay. So again, I think that that's one of those deals where whenever it's here, let me just see if it has a question mark down here. Again, because you can't get this form on your computer, right? When you change forms, things change. All right, so what question? That was 14. All right, so let's see if it had a problem here. And it does. That's crazy. It should be greater than or equal to. Okay, so if that helps you out at all. This question was designed by the Riddler, so no jokes, no laughter. The that's actually worse than no laughter. Is the huh? This is all on the video. Yeah, people will. What's the Riddler? The Riddler is a supervillain in the Batman universe, and he always leaves question marks. Get out! No. People will probably not understand why I said that. Okay. All right. So that covers our most missed questions. Now we're going to cover the questions that you guys want to see. I will write these down, the ones that we cover, because I don't want to cover them again on another video if I don't have to. Do we need to see number 1? Yes? Okay. It says solve the system by substitution. Okay? So when we say substitution, notice that on this bottom equation here, it says y equals x minus 1. X minus 1 equals y. Sir, you may. Okay. Somebody asked to use the restroom. That's why I said you may randomly. I won't say who it is because I don't want to embarrass Avery. She acts like it's diarrhea, so we won't. We'll just. No. No, that's not true. Okay, so because x minus 1 equals y and y equals x minus 1, that means that I can substitute one for another, right? Okay? So when it comes to this y right here, what can I substitute in for that y? Okay, so 2x plus x minus 1 equals what? Check. What? No. Look, we have this equation. I plugged this into this equation. What does this equal here? -4. Okay. Now what this does is it puts my entire equation in terms of x. So I can solve for x now, right? Okay, help me solve for x. 2x plus x minus 1. Bring the -1 where? Over how? How about combine like terms before you do anything? 2x and x is what? So I got 3x minus 1 equals 4. Okay, -4. Good. Okay, 3x minus 1 equals -4. How do you move this -1 over? Add, because it's already subtraction. So we add. Okay, so 3x is equal to what? What's -4 plus 1? -4 plus 1. No. -4 plus 1. Okay, you owe $4 to somebody. You pay them $1. How much do you owe them now? Okay, so you have -$3. Okay, and if you could stop answering for him because you're not helping him at all. Do you understand? Because there's no learning opportunity where somebody hands you the answer. Okay, now how do you solve for x? What? Divide by 3. Okay? Okay, so what's -3 divided by 3? -1. So my answer for x is -1. Okay? Now that I know what x equals, I can go into this equation here, okay, and solve for y. Y equals, what can I sub in for that x? -1, okay, minus 1. What's -1 minus 1? You owe somebody $1, now you owe them another $1. How many dollars do you owe them? Okay, 2. So y equals negative 2. So your answers are negative 1 and negative 2. Okay? All right. All right. Number 2. Same steps. Do we need to do number 2? No? Okay. Number 3. I've seen a lot of people miss this question on tests and all this type of stuff before. You cannot solve this by saying x plus 5 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. Your answer is not negative 5 and 3. Do you know why it's not? Why can I not do those things? Because it doesn't equal 0 yet. Okay, so my first step is to do what? Can anybody tell me? Brianna?
Take the 20 and move it over.
I can't do that yet, though.
Foil first.
Foil first. Foil first. Okay, so x times x is,
X squared.
okay, x times negative 3.
Negative 3x
Okay, 5 times x.
plus 5x.
Okay, 5 times negative 3. Okay, and that's equal to 20. Now, what do I do with the 20? Now I subtract 20. Okay. Okay, so we got x squared. Let's combine my like terms. Negative 3x and 5x is plus 2x. What's negative 15 minus 20? Negative 35. What is that equal to? 0. Now can I factor it? Okay, now it can be factored. Okay, so I know I've got x and x. It's plus minus, so my answer is going to be, what are my operations? Minus plus or plus minus. The order doesn't matter, but I do know this, that the plus has to be bigger. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to be 35 but have a difference of just 2. 7 and 5. Which one is positive? 7 and 5. Okay, so my answers are what? Negative 7 and positive 5. Okay, so if you look at something like that and you see that it's not equal to 0, first step is FOIL. Step 2 is move it over, right? Step 3, then factor, then solve. Okay, so be careful with those. All right, that was number 3. Let me write that up so I know we've done it. Oh, it was 4? No, it was 3. Okay. Number 4, do we need to do that? No? Okay. We've done 5. What about 6? And that's going to end up, that's kind of a tough one because it's part of a multiple choice question. There should be multiple answers there. So it says identify the graph. Well, there's no graph to identify. So what you would have wanted to do on this is plug both of them in your graphing calculator and draw them. Okay. 7 has already been done. 8, is that one we need to do? Okay. Now, what I want to see here, that's my first big clue that something needs to change. Because can I divide by a fraction? No, but I can multiply by a reciprocal. So that's the reciprocal is of which fraction? The first one or the second one? The second one. That's what needs to be a reciprocal. So I've got 3x to the 8th over 2x to the 7th y times what? Over 9. Okay. All right, and now we're just multiplying, correct? So do I need a common denominator when I'm multiplying fractions? No, just multiply across. What's 3 times 2? 6. What's x to the 8th times y to the 4th? There you go. Okay. What's 2 times 9? 18. Okay. Now there's some maneuvering because is all of this multiplication other than the division bar? Okay, that means things can move up and down, right? Okay, first thing I want to look at is can I simplify 6 divided by 18? Yeah, what is that? Okay, so I don't really need a 1 on top, but this is going to reduce to a 3 down here. I've got x to the 8th over x to the 7th. So Okay, so I would move this up. So x to the 8th minus, or sorry, x to the 8th times x to the negative 7th. It's going to be x to the 1st. And now I've got y to the 4th times y to the negative 1st, y to the 3rd. So I should get x, y to the 3rd over 3. Is that the answer? Yeah? Okay. Are we working these things out? We got our red ink pens out. We're changing things, fixing things, making notes. Good. Okay, so that was 8. And if I'm standing in anybody's way over here on the right, let me know. Feel free to interrupt me. Okay. Numero 9. No? 10? No? 11? 12? We'll have to come back to 13. I know I've got that written down somewhere, but again, I'm not really worried about it because it's not one that we'll see on the test. 14 is one we've already covered. 15? Yes? Yes. Okay. So we're dealing with radicals in the denominator. Am I allowed to leave radicals in the denominator? No. Under no circumstances. It's not allowed. Okay? Radical 6 minus radical 5. How do I rationalize the denominator when I have an operation? Multiply by the, it's a weird word, right? It's not one you hear a lot. Conjugate. Okay? What's the conjugate of this denominator? Radical 6 plus radical 5. Just on the denominator, right? We don't have to do it on top? Oh, you do have to do it on top. Radical 6 plus radical 5 on top. Okay? So in the numerator, it's just 7 times each of those things, right? You just distribute. So what do I get?
7 radical 6 plus 7 radical 5.
I really like it when you guys talk like twins, and this is like this really creepy thing. It's really great whenever the whole class answers, and this is really monotone, almost like cult-like thing. Yeah, I think that's what is that, The Shining, where you got like just the two twins walking down the hall? That's great. Thank you for answering your questions like this. Okay, what do I do with the numerator, or sorry, the denominator? Foil. What would we call those, though, just as we start? It's it's a sum difference, right? So how many of them do I have to do? Do I have to do all of FOIL? Just half of them, but I mean, I don't get to pick F and L, right? So radical 6 times radical 6 is 6, and then negative radical 5 times positive radical 5 is negative 5, right? So what's 6 minus 5? And anything divided by 1 is itself, right? So I'm left with 7 radical 6 plus 7 radical 5 as my final answer. Comprende? Savvy? Okay. All right. You have 3 minutes. Okay. Let's see. What question was that? Was number 15? Okay. Let's see. We've done 16. 17 is pretty similar to what we just did, right? I can't divide by a fraction, but I can multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, do I need to do 17? Does anybody need to see that? No? Are we preferring that we stop here? Okay. All right, so we will stop there. And whatever I don't get covered with the other Algebra 2 class, we'll pick up again tomorrow with the time that we have remaining. So we might even wind up with like 4 review videos for this. All right. Thank you all.